We now proceed to the roll call of members.
Madam Chair, I move to dispense with the calling of the roll.
There's a motion to dispense with the calling of the roll. There being no objection, the roll call is hereby dispensed with. We now proceed with the approval of the minutes of the previous meetings of the committee. The Secretariat has already distributed copies of the minutes to the members. The floor is now open.
Yes, Madam Chair, with the certifications by the Secretariat that the copies of the minutes of the previous meeting was furnished the concerned parties. I move to dispense with the reading of the minutes of the previous meeting and move for the approval of the same.
There's a motion to dispense with the reading of the minutes and the approval of the same. There being no objection, the motion is approved. The minutes of the previous meeting held last January 15, 2025 is hereby approved. Good morning. Good morning, everyone. For today's meeting, we will be continuing the deliberations on House Bill number 10986 and agencies who have not yet submitted their position papers to please submit the written position papers as soon as possible. It's been a month since the last hearing on this House bill, so that's more than enough time for everyone to submit their position papers. So maybe we will give everyone a deadline. One more week. That's the pinaka na yun. One more week lang. Kailangan masubmit na lahat ng position papers. At this point, I'd like to acknowledge the presence of Congressman Jaime Fresnedi, and I would like to ask the committee secretary to acknowledge the presence of our invited guests and resource persons. Comsec.
Thank you, Your Honor. Good morning. The committee acknowledges the presence of the following guests and resource persons present today. From the Department of Justice, we have State Counsel Alden Ruben Luna. From the Office of the Solicitor General, Assistant Solicitor General Maria Cielo Serondain, State Solicitor Giselle Hernandez, and Associate Solicitor Eleanor Piñera Velasquez. From the Department of Budget and Management, we have Mr. Reynaldo Moreno and Ms. Julia Micaela Domingiano. From the Commission on Human Rights, Attorney Jasmine Navarro Regino, Attorney Ahmad Khan Kipli, and Attorney Myra May Fernandez. From the Public Attorney's Office, Attorney Julius Cesar Balbuena and Attorney Nazario Bancao Jr. From the National Security Council, Director Monico Batle and Attorney Camille Angelica Gonzalez. From the National Bureau of Investigation, Attorney Florendo Gamonac and Attorney Jane Lau. From the Department of National Defense, Armed Forces of the Philippines, we have Colonel Eduardo Esquivias, JAGS. From the National Police Commission, we have Director Chito Noel Bustonera. From the Department of Interior and Local Government, Attorney Ross Rafael Bascuña. From the National Union of People's Lawyers, Attorney Ephraim Cortez. From Karapatan Alliance for Advancement of People's Rights, Roneo Clamora. From Justicia, Leanne Redino Porquia. From the Ateneo Human Rights Center, Attorney Nicolene Arcana. From the Integrated Bar of the Philippines, Attorney Maria Cristina Yambot. From the Philippine National Police, we have Police Colonel Rainiel Valones and Police Colonel Samuel Mina. Your Honor.
Okay, so we will first ask the CHR to give their position. CHR.
Yes, ma'am. Good morning, Your Honors. Magandang umaga po sa ating lahat. We already, by the way, I am Attorney Jasmine Navarro Regina, the Director 4 of the Protection Office, Commission on Human Rights Central Office. We already submitted our position paper, Your Honor, and we fully articulated the position of CHR as far as House Bill 10986 is concerned. But we would like to amplify some of the provisions stated in our position paper, Your Honor. With your indulgence, may I be allowed to read some of this?
Please.
Especially because during the last hearing, there were proposals to make EJK not as an independent crime, but more of as an aggravating or qualifying circumstance. We beg to disagree, Your Honor, because we would want EJK as an independent and distinct from the crime of murder. Why? Because this stance is more compelling as it recognizes the unique nature of EJK and the systemic issues underlying it. More so, firstly, the element of public official involvement is a defining characteristic of EJK. It is the abuse of state power, the utilization of government policies, machinery, apparatus, and resources that transforms an ordinary murder into an extrajudicial killing. By considering it an aggravating qualifying circumstance, the focus shifts to the individual perpetrator rather than the systemic factors that enable such killings. This approach fails to address the underlying issues of impunity, abuse of power, and state-sanctioned violence. Also, EJK has a profound impact on the victims' families and the community as a whole, causing trauma, fear, and an erosion of trust in the justice system. Recognizing EJK as a separate crime is crucial, not merely as a legal technicality, but a necessary step to acknowledge the gravity of the offense, facilitate more effective investigations and prosecutions, and ultimately hold perpetrators accountable. Lastly, while the difficulty in establishing public officials' involvement in EJK is a valid concern, it is precisely this complexity that necessitates a distinct legal framework enabling targeted investigative and prosecutorial strategies. By making EJK a distinct crime, it allows for targeted investigations, prosecutions, and policy responses to address the root causes of EJK. And also, Your Honor, we fully support the provision on the establishment of an EJK claims board, but however, because in the bill it is more attached and part of the Commission on Human Rights, we would like to propose that it should be attached but separate and distinct from the Commission on Human Rights, Your Honor. Those are just the two provisions or positions that we would like to highlight in this August body. Thank you, Your Honors.
Before we continue, I'd like to acknowledge the presence of Congressman Joseph Stephen Caraps Paduano, who is also celebrating his birthday today. Happy birthday.
Thank you, thank you. Thank you, Chair. Good morning, everyone. Thank you.
So, are there any questions from the members at this point for the CHR? So we'll proceed first to the next resource person. They already submitted their position paper, so yes, we will give everyone a copy, and also we will make a summary for the members of all the position papers that we use. So NAPOLCOM, is there a representative? Yes, please identify yourself.
Good morning, ma'am. Director Chito Bustonera from the NAPOLCOM Legal Affairs Service. We already submitted, ma'am, our position paper on the matter last December. And we would just like to reiterate our support for the bill. Basically, there are just three matters that we would like to point out, specifically on the item of presumption of negligence. It is our suggestion that to have definitive factors which would give rise to the presumption of negligence. Established criteria should be made, for example, a baseline or threshold of number of incidents from which the increase will be measured, specific time or period during which the increase must occur, there must be a clear criteria for determining whether the increase is attributable to the administrative negligence rather than external factors. Second, on the matter of the definition of who is liable for EJK under Section 9, it states that, quote, any public officer in charge of public order and safety and the local chief executive. We take note that in the local government units, there are different departments of public order. So we are just inquiring as to whether the heads of the departments will likewise be made liable, or the liability will just be attributable to the local chief executive. And third, as a way of discussion, there was a question raised as to the somewhat legality of the provision regarding suspension of police officers during the during the pendency of a criminal case. So, by way of information to the court, we cite to this body, we cited the case of Himagan versus People of the Philippines, where the Supreme Court had already passed upon the legality of said provision, which is existing actually under Section 47 of RA 6975. So we support this provision that a police officer may be suspended during the pendency of an admin case, and then the exchanges between then Senator Maceda and Representative Albano further bolsters the retention of this section in the proposed bill. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you. PNP, any questions for the members at this point? Okay, so PNP.
Ma'am, good morning to each and everyone. Pleasant morning to all. Ma'am, for the PNP, ma'am, we manifest our support to the foregoing legislative measure, which aims to strengthen the legal framework for investigating, prosecuting, and punishing those responsible for heinous crimes. Ma'am, we already stated our recommendations last meeting, ma'am, and we are awaiting the signature of our chief PNP because our position paper is already en route. And we will submit the soonest possible time, ma'am.
Members, any questions? Okay. Pao?
Good morning, Your Honors, and to all of us present here. We have already submitted our position paper, Your Honor, dated November 20, 2024, and we would just like to reiterate, Your Honor, our position in giving support to the passage of the bill under deliberation. And of course, the Mayor of Davao in rendering free legal services to indigent persons and other qualified persons in civil, labor, admin cases subject to our existing rules and regulations in merit and indigency test. Thank you, Your Honors.
Thank you. I think you also submitted a supplemental position paper.
Yes, sir. Just on November 20, 2024 position paper, Your Honors.
Okay. Okay. Questions from the members at this point? None? Okay. NSC?
Good morning po, Madam Chair, members of the committee, colleagues from the government, and other guests po. We are from the National Security Council. I am Attorney Camille Angelica Gonzalez, legal officer. Together with me is Director Monico S. Batle from the National Security Council. We already submitted our position papers. We submitted our first position paper last December 2024. The date escaped me right. And we also submitted a revised position paper this January 2025. I also last meeting that we are in full support of the pending legislation or bill under consideration, Your Honor.
Thank you. OSG.
Good morning, Your Honors. The OSG submitted its position paper. I think the House received it last January 16, I'm sorry. Yeah.
Sorry po, ASG, can you just introduce yourself?
Sorry. Yeah, I'm ASG Shelo Rondain, and with me are State Solicitor Hernandez and Senior State Solicitor Pinera Vasquez. So anyway, we submitted our position paper, and in our position paper, the OSG respectfully recommends to harmonize HB 10986 under a unified code with a revised penal code, which is the legal framework for the prosecution and penalizing of crimes. So the objective is to streamline the legislative process, to prevent legal fragmentation, to strengthen the prosecution mechanism, and to prevent the jurisdictional confusion between the application of the special law and the RPC. So it is respectfully recommended that the revised penal code be amended and add EJK under Title 8 of the Crimes Against Persons, and then under the amended RPC, the definition of EJK understood in the international law will be included, specify the elements constituting the commission of EJK, identify the attendant and qualifying circumstances, identify the perpetrators to be held principally liable, and of course include the penalty. So we advocated on this because we saw the advantage of vacating HB 10986 and amend the RPC. The attendant qualifying circumstances of treachery, evident premeditation, and abuse of superior strength, among others, which are actually the qualifying circumstances in murder under Article 248, will actually be included as elements of the EJK. So should the prosecution fail to prove all the elements of EJK, the accused can still be convicted of murder under Article 248. Specifically, Section 4, Rule 120 of the Revised Rules of Criminal Procedure specifically states that if the offense charged is included or necessarily includes the offense proved, then the accused may be convicted of the offense proved. Under Section 5, it states that an offense charged necessarily includes the offense proved when some of the essential elements or ingredients of the offense charged are alleged in the complaint or information constituting the offense proved. Vis-a-vis, if HB 10986 will actually be enacted into a special law, then it would be considered as a special law. Ergo, if the accused is charged under the special law for EJK, the accused can no longer be indicted under the RPC for murder, as this would constitute double jeopardy, which is prohibited under our Constitution, particularly Article 3, Section 21. And as regards the creation of a monetary claims, it is also the position of the Office of the Solicitor General to consolidate the determination of the monetary claims with the Board of Claims under Republic Act 7309 instead of creating under HB 10986 a specialized EJK Claims Board tasked to investigate, resolve, approve with finality and all applications of monetary claims. So the proposal really is to amend instead Republic Act 7309 to streamline the administrative procedure, promote fiscal economy, since this will eliminate the need for additional funding in creating a new board and with new set of members. So all this, Your Honors, are incorporated and extensively discussed in the position paper that we submitted. Thank you, Your Honors.
Members, that's a very interesting position, ASG, and we will look at your position paper so that maybe we can consider that for the next hearing.
Thank you, Your Honor. And if there's anything more that we need to do so that we can assist the House, we would actually welcome and gladly do it. Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you. NUPL.
Good morning, Your Honors. NUPL joins the position of the Commission on Human Rights that a separate law should be passed.
Excuse me, can you please identify yourself?
Yes, Efraim Cortez, Your Honor, from the National Union of People's Lawyers.
And what is your position?
I'm the president, Your Honor, please.
Please proceed.
We join the position, or we agree with the position of the Commission on Human Rights that a separate law should be passed to define and penalize EJK as a crime. If we simply amend the revised penal code and make it an aggravating circumstance for murder, it will make it doubly difficult to prosecute EJK cases, considering so many circumstances, Your Honor. And we'll cite some of our recommendations in our position paper submitted in December of 2024, Your Honor. To clarify the extent and nature of EJKs, we recommend the following. EJK should refer to the killings committed by public officer, a person in authority, an agent of a person in authority, or any person acting under the direction, supervision, or acquiescence of a public officer, person in authority, or agents of a person in authority with or without state sanction. Instead of merely holding accountable for administrative negligence, superior officers of those involved in the commission of EJ's case should be held criminally liable under the principle of command responsibility. The concept and definition of command responsibility under the Anti-Torture Act of 2009 and the Anti-Enforced or Involuntary Disappearance Act has already been imposed in those laws, Your Honor. EJKs involving armed combatants in the current insurgency war shall not be included in the definition of EJK committed against armed combatants, which should instead be prosecuted under the pertinent provisions of Republic Act number 9851, otherwise known as the Philippine Act on Crimes Against International Humanitarian Law, Genocide, and Other Crimes Against Humanity. We submitted our proposed definition, Your Honor, and we also take note, Your Honor, certain difficulties in cases of EJK, especially in identification and investigation of perpetrators, which should be considered when we craft the law against EJK. One is difficulty in identifying the perpetrators. Assailants often obscure their identities by wearing hoods, masks, or helmets during the commission of EJKs, making recognition nearly impossible. Fear among witnesses. Potential witnesses are reluctant to come forward due to fear of retaliation, intimidation, or harm to themselves and their families. Deficient investigations. Genuine and thorough police investigations are often lacking. Crime scene and forensic investigations, which are critical to identifying perpetrators and building cases, are either improperly conducted or completely absent. Lack of police initiative. Law enforcement authorities frequently exhibit a disconcerting lack of interest in pursuing investigations into these killings, further exacerbating impunity. Non-compliance with investigative protocols. The PNP Manual of Operations mandates investigations into operatives involved in operations resulting in death. However, this requirement is often inconsistently enforced or entirely disregarded. We also suggested certain presumptions, Your Honor, to address these difficulties. One, presumption of fault in investigations. During investigation of EJKs committed during military operations or police operations, warrantless arrests, or the execution of warrants of arrest or search warrants, a presumption of fault should be imposed on all officers involved. This presumption creates a stronger incentive for accountability and thorough oversight. Mandatory extraordinary diligence. The law should require police and military operatives to exercise extraordinary diligence in all operations. This standard ensures heightened responsibility to prevent unnecessary harm and reinforces the principle that the right to life must be safeguarded at all times. Presumed participation of the team. It should be presumed that all members of an operating team were involved with the killing unless proven otherwise. This collective accountability ensures that no participant can evade scrutiny or responsibility through silence or inaction. Burden of proof for diligence, and only those members of the operating team who can demonstrate that they exercise extraordinary diligence to prevent the EJK should be absolved of criminal or administrative liability. This shifts the burden to individual officers to assure their adherence to legal and ethical standards during operations. We also included proposed provisions in relation to this recommendation. Thank you, Your Honors.
Thank you. Karapatan.
Good morning, Your Honors. I'm Reneo Clamor. I'm currently the Karapatan National Executive Committee member. Karapatan has already submitted its position paper on January 6 this year, and I would like to reiterate the 7 points in our position paper, if you will, if I may, Madam Chair.
Yes, go ahead.
Okay.
Go ahead. Make it short lang.
Yes, ma'am. Okay. There are 7 points, ma'am. One, we acknowledge the importance of this bill, especially to recognize the classification of EJK as heinous crimes and the accountability of state forces as a significant step. Second, in terms of the historical context and systematic patterns, EJKs or extrajudicial killings are linked to counterinsurgency operations, often targeting activists, human rights workers, and farmers. Victims are red tagged, harassed, and falsely accused of being armed combatants before being killed. Examples of these high-profile cases are like the Bloody Sunday killings and the Tumandok massacre. No? And third, the perpetuation of impunity. Of course, we notice when we observe that there are rare indictments and conviction of perpetrators, with only 3% of cases under the Administrative Order Number 35 achieving convictions. Use of narratives like nanlaban and evidence planting to justify killings. Fourth, the impact on families and communities. Psychological trauma, threats, and reprisals against victims' families with no government support or compensation. Fifth, relevant legal frameworks. International treaties like the Geneva Convention, the ICCPR, the Republic Act 9851, the Comprehensive Agreement on Respect for Human Rights and International Humanitarian Law, and the Republic Act number 1188 should also be considered in crafting this proposed bill. Number 6, the proposed amendments to anti-EJK bill. Number 1, in terms of definition, the definition should align with international and domestic human rights laws, explicitly including state-sponsored and federation-linked killings. Then, yung second point about the burden of proof, it should shift responsibility to law enforcement to prove extraordinary diligence, negating presumption of regularity. Third, command responsibility. Incorporate provisions holding higher-ranking officials accountable for subordinate action. Fourth, liability for superiors. No? Emphasize accountability for failure to prevent or report extrajudicial killings. And fifth, removal of exclusionary clause. Eliminate provisions exempting areas declared as conflict zones from accountability. And last, ma'am, for advocacy and systematic change, a call for justice, reforms ensuring accountability, rejecting policies that justify killings, and protecting fundamental rights. Thank you, Your Honor. That's all.
Thank you. Justicia.
Good morning, Your Honor. My name is Lian Porquia. I am one of the board members of Justicia. I'm also the son of the victim of an extrajudicial killing in 2020, Jose Rinaldo Porquia in Iloilo City. Our position we share with Karapatan in terms of the definition, some of the provisions on the command responsibility, and also, if the committee would allow, let me reiterate that the phenomenon of extrajudicial killings, Your Honor, we can supplement this in a separate position on the data that of the 700 plus victims of extrajudicial killings, not one have been resolved or not one perpetrator have been prosecuted throughout the last 10 years, Your Honor. So in terms of presumption of negligence, we would put our position that all the political killings should be considered as extrajudicial killings, Your Honor. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So the following resource persons have already submitted their position papers, but if you would like to add to your position paper, DALG.
Good morning, Your Honors. I am Director Ross Bascuña of the DALG Legal and Legislative Liaison Service. And we have already submitted our position paper, and we would just like to reiterate our proposal to streamline the stated 120-day preventive suspension in the proposed bill, to streamline it with the current ombudsman rules, which states that a public officer may be preventively suspended up to a maximum period of 6 months. Thank you, Your Honors.
Thank you. NBI.
Madam Chair, and to the honorable members of the committee, and sa ating lahat po. Madam Chair, we just have submitted our position paper a while ago. Regarding our position with the proposed House bill, we share the same concern with the Office of the Solicitor General as to the presumption of regularity, due process, and the possible double jeopardy po, ma'am. If we punish the same one act, if we punish one act sa dalawang batas po, we have discussed it in our position paper, ma'am.
That's all?
Medyo mahaba po kasi yung position paper mo.
No, I mean, do you want to add anything else?
Na-discuss po namin po lahat, ma'am, yung concerns namin sa position paper namin.
Okay. IBP Human Rights Committee.
Good morning, Your Honor. I am Attorney Maria Cristina Yambot. I am the chairperson of the Committee on Human Rights of the IBP, Your Honor. I would just like to say a few words, Your Honor. The Integrated Bar of the Philippines was reestablished with the current Board of Governors under the leadership of Attorney Antonio Pido this 2024, Your Honor. We support the efforts of Congress to classify and penalize extrajudicial killings as a heinous crime. Being the sentinel of the rule of law, the IBP supports efforts to strengthen the protection and promotion of fundamental rights as mandated by our Constitution and in compliance with our international commitments and covenants. Members of the Philippine Bar, our lawyers, have been victims of the extrajudicial killings. As such, the IBP, being the official organization of the all Philippine lawyers, is very much interested and invested to obtain justice for all victims of EJK. Further, as officers of the court, the IBP supports efforts to improve the administration of justice and the creation of an enabling environment wherein the bar can discharge its public responsibility more effectively. We thank the House Committee on Justice for this opportunity to participate in the crafting of an important legislation, and the IBP will submit its position paper within the period required by this the Honorable Committee, Your Honor. Thank you.
Life and for rights.
Good morning, Your Honor. I'm Deaconess Rubilin Litao. I am the coordinator of Rise Up for Life and for Rights, which was established in 2016 during the bloody war of the former President Rodrigo Duterte. We have not yet submitted our position paper. We are in the process of consulting the families. Rise Up is working with the family victims in around 8 communities. With me is Ms. Jane Lee, the widow of a drug-related killing victim. So we want to take this opportunity to thank this committee and the other committees who are there are an ongoing investigation going on in regard to the drug-related killings and the EJK. We want to thank this committee to this is an opportunity for the committee to pass legislation on the extrajudicial killings, which will not be allowed to persist in the future administrations. We want to emphasize that the families keep on saying this must be stopped. The killings must not be. These killings will not. It's not justified for the families to be killed. So we want to reiterate that call from the families. Rise Up, heartfelt appeal to the committee that they also make sure to think on all the orphans, the widows, the children, the families whose lives has been shattered and damaged and dreams were totally their dreams were shattered. So we continue to appeal to the committee to continue to reach out to the victims' families. Rise Up is willing to join this committee to reach out to the families, especially those we have reached out to the 8 communities. And we continue to reiterate the call of the families. They are continue to seek justice in whatever way they can. So this is our appeal, and in behalf of the families, we continue to thank this committee. And we would like to introduce our Jane Lee, one of the family victims.
Magandang umaga po sa inyo lahat.
Po. Can you please submit your position paper soonest? I want to get all the position papers so that we can already consolidate and summarize all the recommendations, and then para sa next hearing we can already parang i-discuss na natin yung details nung mga position papers, yung suggestions nyo. So sige,
thank you.
Sige, so next, when can you submit po kaya?
Next week or within the week?
Sige po, as soon as possible, para kasi the sooner you submit the position papers, mabibigay namin sa mga members, and then para sa next meeting kasi tuloy-tuloy na yung discussion dahil nabasa na nila lahat yung mga position papers na. Sige, we now recognize Miss Amy Jane Lee.
Yes po, magandang umaga po sa inyong lahat. Ako po si Amy Jane Lee, pamilya ng biktima ng war on drugs. Ang asawa ko po ang biktima ng March 20, 2017. At hanggang ngayon po ay naghihintay pa rin ng totoong hustisya, hindi lamang po para sa aking asawa, sa lahat po ng mga naging biktima. Salamat po sa ganitong pagkakataon at nabibigyan kami ng magandang pagkakataon na makapagsalita na hindi po namin nagagawa noon. Kaya sa inyo po lahat, napakahirap po ng ganitong sitwasyon, pero kami po mga pamilya ng biktima ay nagpipilit po talaga. Kahit po ang sitwasyon namin sa araw-araw ay mahirap, pero nandito po kami para talagang humingi po ng hustisya, at sa pamamagitan nyo po, naniniwala po kami na mangyayari yon. Salamat po.
Salamat po. So yung kasama na po yung yung position niya dun sa inyong position paper, no? Isang organization lang kayo.
Okay. Yung po mga narratives from the families, we are trying to consolidate po para dun sa position paper. Salamat po.
Sige po. Ano pa next? Natawag na ba lahat? Ito pa. AFP?
Good morning, Madam Chair, and to the honorable members of the committee. I'm Colonel Eduardes Kivias Jags from the Office of the Judge Advocate General in the Armed Forces of the Philippines, and I'm currently the legal officer of the AAP Center for Law of Armed Conflict. Madam Chair, we have not yet submitted our position paper, but we will endeavor to submit as soon as possible. We have compiled our inputs so far, and we support the initiative of having EJK the EJK be penalized under our laws. However, we express our concerns and reservations as we, with the kind indulgence, and kind indulgence of the honorable committee, that we humbly believe that an EJK is already covered under our existing laws as the crime of murder under the revised penal code, and it can also be considered as unlawful killing under the Public Act 9851, which is our domestic law on IHL. Secondly, RA 9745 and RA 10353, known as the Anti-Torture Law and Anti-Enforced Disappearance Law, also is a factor because in those three laws, RA 951, RA 9745, and RA 10353, we see the command responsibility as a factor in the imposition of the penalty and on the liability of superior officers. Aside from that, aside from command responsibility, on the compensation, restitution, and reparation for victims of torture and for disappearance. And lastly, and also the penalty of reclusion perpetua, where they can be considered as principal offenders. No? From arresto mayor to reclusion temporal and reclusion perpetua. Lastly, Madam Chair, we also would like, if it's possible, for the committee to study the possibility, as we understand that EJK refers to the government's responsibility and obligation to protect life, no? But in the Additional Order 35 mechanism, it has been found that victims of EJK come from non-state armed groups or private individuals. So we suggest, if for consideration of the honorable committee, that members of non-state armed groups or private individuals be considered as one or as an offender of committing EJK. We will submit our position paper as soon as possible, Madam Chair.
I'd like to acknowledge the presence of Congressman Robert Ace Barbers, the chairman of the Committee on Dangerous Drugs.
Thank you.
So please submit your position paper soonest. Ateneo Human Rights Center.
Madam.
Yes.
Before we recognize the next can I ask? Sorry, I'm just outside of the room. So you're representing the armed forces?
Yes, Madam Chair.
Okay.
Yes, you are.
So yung initial comment nyo is that we should consider as part of the bill or all non-state actors. Non-state actors.
Yes, Your Honor.
So that includes all our groups.
Yes, Your Honor. Non-state armed groups included.
Non-state actors.
Yes, Your Honor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just to clarify lang po. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. So Ateneo Human Rights Center.
Good morning, Chair. Good morning to the members of the committee. I am Atty. Nicolene S. Ercaina, the current Executive Director of Ateneo Human Rights Center. We endeavor to submit our position paper at the end of the day, Madam Chair. But allow me to submit our position today and a few of our arguments. First, we do support the efforts, and we think the efforts of the Congress to penalize or to punish the extrajudicial killings as a separate crime and characterize it as heinous. However, we also take this opportunity to provide our suggestions on how it can be improved. Number one, as it stands, since the bill, if passed into law, it will be a penal law, and it will be it will be applied prospectively, of course. And in this case, we are confronted with the reality that killings during the war on drugs, as stated in the explanatory note of the bill, cannot be punished because of the prohibition against ex post facto laws. Second, it is not clear, since there is a prospective application of the law, if the reparations will take the same character, that reparations can only be claimed by victims or families of extrajudicial killings, but that will be punished after the passage of this law. So our suggestion is to harmonize our current laws to ensure that full accountability and full prosecution for extrajudicial killings committed in the past, especially during the war on drugs, be prosecuted. And second, to ensure that victims and families of the war, families of victims of the war on drugs, be afforded the opportunity to claim for reparations under this law. Second, Your Honor, we also are of the position that the bill can be improved by also expressly including the state's commitments under the different international treaties and conventions, including but not limited to the Convention on the Rights of the Child and the Convention on the Elimination of Discrimination Against Women. We suggest this specifically because we understand that although a lot of the killings during the war on drugs adversely affected males and breadwinners of the families, the adverse indirect effects of the war on drugs, the burden of such are on children and on women, both the financial, the socioeconomic, and the emotional burden of moving on. And it is of our position that we take our state commitments seriously and incorporating them to make the relevant provisions of this bill, specifically on the monetary and non-monetary reparations, to be child appropriate and gender responsive. Next, Your Honor, we also are of the position that the definition of the extrajudicial killing under this bill must be revised to be stated not in the negative but in the positive, to state all the attributes and elements, and we can take definitions under international law, Your Honor, and even there is a prescribed definition as well in the CHR report of 2022 that's stated in the explanatory note of the bill. So we suggest that the definition be revised. Next, Your Honor, on the definition of administrative negligence, administrative negligence as it stands in the bill is defined as an inaction only in relation to prevention of an extrajudicial killing. But we submit that administrative negligence must also be in relation to inaction to not only to prevent, but also to investigate, to prosecute, and to pursue remedies under our current judicial system. And so we also submit that the corresponding duties to effectively prevent, investigate, prosecute, and to pursue remedies must be included and defined under the bill, and we can borrow the comprehensive guidelines under the revised 2016 Minnesota Protocol to provide us with a framework of these corresponding duties. The rest, Your Honor, of our position we will be including and comprehensively discussing. We will be comprehensively discussing them in our position paper. Thank you very much.
Thank you. That's also very interesting, no? Next, last two na lang, no? DBM and then DOJ. DBM.
Magandang buhay, everyone. Good morning, Madam Chair, and to the honorable members of this committee. Pati po sa mga kapwa resource persons. Ma'am, my apologies. The DBM is yet to submit our signed position paper. However, please allow me to read a portion of it. On Section 5, on monetary reparations for victims, we deem that the proposed monetary reparations for victims under Section 5 of the bill may be covered by the Victims' Compensation Fund as administered by the DOJ. Based on the annual BSF, the collection receipts under the BCF from fiscal year 2021 to 2024 is amounting to 266.808 million, while per coordination with the BOC, a total of 3,624 applications were granted under the BCF, which equivalent to 40.95 million. Considering po that the yearly collections receipts for the BCF exceed the actual awards granted to the applications approved by the BOC, the monetary reparations for the legal heirs of victims of EJK may be charged against the BCF upon evaluation and approval of the BOC and or the proposed EJA Claims Board, subject to the existing budgeting and accounting laws, rules, and regulation. On Section 7 and Section 8, the EJK Claims Board and the powers and functions of the proposed board, we deem that the DOJ BOC can handle the powers and functions of the proposed EJK Claims Board. Hence, we suggest that the existing DOJ BOC may be expanded, strengthened to further include the proposed functions of the EJK Claims Board. Further, we recommend that continuing dialogue and collaboration within the DOJ offices be pursued in order to prevent the duplications of functions and programs with regard to the provision of reparations to victims of EJK, as well as a thorough review of functions and mandate vis-a-vis with the existing organizational structure and staffing complement of the DOJ be conducted before pursuing any organizational or staffing modifications or changes therein. However, we defer to the wisdom of Congress on the matter. If ever the EJK Claims Board is established, we suggest to include a sunset clause and the appropriate time frame to complete its work, similar to the Human Rights Victims Claims Board and the Marawi Compensation Board. As to Section 13 of the bill on the appropriations, similar with our comments on Section 5, we note that the additional compensation and reparation should be handled by the Board of Claims instead of the CHR to avoid duplications. Hence, we suggest that the funding requirement should be charged against the collections authorized under Section 9 of RA 7309. That's all, Madam Chair.
DOJ, last.
Good morning, Madam Chair, and to the members of the committee. I am Alden Luna, State Counsel from the Department of Justice. The department is has not yet submitted its position paper, but we will endeavor to submit the same within the prescribed period, as mentioned earlier, the soonest time possible. But we generally support the proposed measure of providing a clear definition for EJK and categorizing the same as a heinous crime. Nonetheless, we will be formally submitting our comments on the specific provisions in our position paper. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Okay, so everyone was given a chance to say their piece. So it seems that there's a general support for the general position is that you all support the bill, no? So it's just the details. So we have one view na gusto niyo separate law. The other view is that it will just be the RPC will just be amended. So we will look at all the position papers that you submitted, and siguro we'll give the members copy so that sa next hearing, medyo mas detailed na yung ating discussion. But for now, I'd like to ask the members if they would like to ask or say something. Yes, Chair Ace.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just a clarification. In fact, I'd like to solicit an idea from our resource persons. In the context of the commission of the extrajudicial killings will only be limited to state agents. I don't know if that would violate the Equal Protection Clause of the Constitution, pero that's why I'd like to solicit your idea on this. No? Meaning, it is really the state agents, law enforcers who have committed such extrajudicial killings as defined in our laws. Ang tanong ko lang, posible ba natin i-limit lang ito doon sa mga law enforcers?
OSG maybe? Or DOJ?
We're just soliciting ideas from you. Kasi if this is possible, because if a private group or individual who is not a law enforcer commits such a crime, pwede bang hindi siya extrajudicial killing? I'm just toying with the idea, Madam Chair, because kung state agents, kasi it has been the practice no, ng mga PNP members and some law enforcers, no, to commit such extrajudicial killings in the exercise of their duties and functions. Ang nangyari yun, because when we were investigating a lot of drug cases, ang nangyayari, police shoots a drug suspect or a drug pusher and claims that nanlaban, number one. No? Number two, the law enforcer shoots the drug user, the pusher, and then say that parang at risk of their life and limb, self-defense sila. Parang, I hope you're getting me. I don't know if I was able to convey to you kung ano yung, ang ibig ko sabihin is that is it possible without violating the Equal Protection Clause of our Constitution na ilimit yung crime of extrajudicial killing sa mga state agents or law enforcers? Is that possible? Madam Chair?
Yes. OSG or DOJ, can you please enlighten us? Or CHR, if you have, yes.
Yes, Your Honor, I think we could limit it to state agents, not necessarily law enforcement, just state agents in general, because we already have enacted laws on that. We have the anti-enforced disappearance law, wherein the perpetrators are state agents, and likewise we have the anti-torture law, the same, the perpetrators are state agents. So we could come up with a law as well, wherein the perpetrators are state agents, limiting it to state agents.
Yes, OSG.
Your Honor, in response to the question, that's why the OSG is, Your Honor, is actually proposing to redefine the definition of EJK that is compliant with the international law. And in our position paper, we actually, that is understood rather in the international law, so to properly differentiate the crime of homicide and murder, and at the same time, specifically identify who will actually be held liable or criminally liable for EJK. So under our position paper, the proposed definition is any public officer, person in authority, agent of a person in authority, or any person acting under the actual or apparent authority or order of such public officer, person in authority, or agent of a person in authority who, not falling within the provisions of Article 846, which is parricide, unlawfully kills a person, shall be guilty of extrajudicial killing if committed with any of the attendant circumstances under Article 248, which is murder, and for the purpose of suppressing dissent, opposition, or criticism expressed by individuals, groups, or organizations, or of punishing alleged criminals to instill fear and to deter others or for similar purposes, the penalty of EJK for the other purposes, and the penalty of the EJK shall likewise be reclusion perpetua. So we likewise recommend the inclusion of command responsibility in the EJK definition, where the commanding or superior officer shall likewise be liable for ordering the killing or failing to prevent the commission of the crime. So as regards the question as to who the public officers or persons in authorities are, Article 203 of the Revised Penal Code specifically defines a public officer as any person who, by direct provision of the law, popular election or appointment by competent authority, shall take part in the performance of public functions in the government of the Philippines, or shall perform in said government or in any of its branches public duties as an employee, agent, or subordinate official, or any rank or class, shall be deemed to be a public officer. Under Article 152 of the Revised Penal Code, it likewise defines who the persons in authorities are. And the definition of persons in authority is any person directly vested with jurisdiction, whether as an individual or as a member of some court or government corporation, board or commission, a barrio captain and a barangay chairman shall also be deemed a person in authority. As regards the definition of an agent of a person in authority, it is defined as the person who, by direct provision of the law or by election or by appointment of competent authority, is charged with the maintenance of public order and the protection and security of life and property, such as a barrio councilman, barrio policeman, barangay leader, and any person who comes to the aid of the person in authority. Now, as regards the question on whether a private individual may likewise be indicted for an extrajudicial killing, our answer is yes. A private individual who unlawfully kills another without due process can be indicted and held criminally and civilly liable for extrajudicial killing if they act with the support, consent, or acquiescence of a public officer, person in authority, agent, or a person in authority, or a person acting under the actual or apparent authority or order of the public officer or person in authority or agent. So that's I hope I was able to answer, Your Honor, your question.
Masyado mahaba. Pero that's quite informative and educational. But, Madam Chair, yes, so in the information shared to us by OSG, hindi lang siya limited dun sa law enforcement agents, no? Any public officer elected or appointed or basta given that mandate of quote unquote public service is considered a public officer. So kung ganun, what now would be the distinction between the commission of a murder and the extrajudicial killing? Kung ganun ang ating mindset. I was thinking more of pagka EJK yan, if someone in authority, a law enforcer, commits murder, kills someone, extrajudicial killing yan. If a private individual shoots someone and kills someone, murder yun. Is that possible?
Yes, OSG, please.
Yes, Your Honor, pwede po. So, kaya nga ho, that's why we are recommending that the House Bill 10986 be actually harmonized and unified in one code, which is the RPC.
Yeah.
Because if there's a failure to prove EJK, because one of the elements, which is actually also an element in murder, is not proven, then the accused may still be indicted or convicted of murder or homicide.
Okay.
But if the House Bill is enacted into a law, then it becomes a special law, in which case, if the EJK under the special law is not actually proven, then you can no longer indict or convict a person for murder or homicide because it will violate his constitutional right against double jeopardy. Yes.
Yeah, that's more a clarification which this representation now understands. Ang ano kasi, the next question that I'd like to throw to the resource persons is that you think there is a necessity to pass this or file this bill and pass this into law, or should we just be concentrating on amending the RPC? Is a Republic Act a necessity in this case, or amendment to kasi marami kaming naririnig na mga criticisms din, sinasabi nila that any killing outside of the state's approval, because wala naman tayong death penalty, is an extrajudicial killing. That's why the authors, just like my good friend here who's celebrating his birthday today, happy birthday by the way, Congressman Paduano, shares the same view na, pero is there a necessity to push for this law or just simply amend the RPC?
Sige, OSG, and then may nag-raise na una, Justicia, and then NUPL, and then Ateneo. Sige, OSG.
Your Honors, as discussed earlier on, it is actually highly recommended that the House Bill 10986 be harmonized under a unified code, which is the revised penal code, because the revised penal code is the legal framework for the prosecuting and penalizing of crime. And with this measure, we streamline the legislative process, we prevent fragmentation, we likewise strengthen the prosecution mechanism, and we likewise prevent jurisdictional confusion between the application of the special law and the RPC. And I have explained the benefits if the EJK will actually be codified under the revised penal code. So, and then if it's amended, if the revised penal code is amended, then we will actually be able to include that as a separate article under, separate provision under Article 248, which is murder, and then all the qualifying circumstances of murders will likewise be included. But there has to be a strict definition of the EJK understood in the international law, and then we should likewise specify the elements constituting the commission of the EJK, and we will likewise identify the attendant qualifying circumstances and identify who the perpetrators are to be held principally liable. And of course, we likewise have to include the command responsibility provision and of course the penalty that will be imposed for those who committed the EJK. So those are actually one of the those are the items that we have submitted to the House in our position paper. I'm just giving a gist of what we have prepared. Thank you so much, Chair.
Justicia.
Thank you, Your Honors. While we appreciate the legal definitions and the impact of having a separate bill on extrajudicial killings, I'd like to reiterate the social impact, especially that there is a sense of impunity if extrajudicial killing is committed, Your Honors. And the culture of impunity, we would like to address this by distinguishing the commission of extrajudicial killing as an act of a state actor sanctioned. Actually, if we're going to read the definition from international laws, it states that the definition shall include extrajudicial killings committed during warrantless arrests or during the implementation of warrants of arrest and search warrants and during military operations. EJK definition shall include any deliberate or arbitrary killing of any person by state actors or any person acting under their direction, supervision, or with their acquiescence, with or without state sanction. So, Your Honors, the critical component of an extrajudicial killing is that there is a state-sponsored or there is a state sanction. If we're going to include non-state actors, I think that would put us in a very dangerous position. Any crime committed as murder can be equivalent to extrajudicial killings, which we're reducing the culture of impunity to just murder, Your Honor.
Okay, NUPL and then Ateneo.
Thank you, Your Honors. I think there's a necessity to pass a separate EJK bill to define and penalize EJK as a crime. I believe that lumping up with this case to murder will not resolve the issue, considering we should consider the difference and the nature of an EJK from ordinary murders. Of course, state actors, the participant there is the state actors. And I believe that we should impose a higher standards on state actors, higher than those we impose on ordinary citizens. So in terms of equal protection, I don't think there's a violation because there's a substantial distinction. We are imposing it on state actors where a higher standard of care is being imposed on them. If we include EJK as a species of murder, all the available defenses and the elements that is applicable to murder and all the defenses applicable to all offenses or felonies under the revised penal code will be applicable and will make it doubly difficult for EJKs to be proven. We enumerated the factors that make it difficult to identify the perpetrators, investigate and prosecute them. And if we simply define it as a species of murder, we will not going to address all these difficulties. This is why a separate law should be passed to address the difficulties in identifying, prosecuting, investigating and prosecuting the perpetrators of EJKs. Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you, Ateneo.
Thank you, Chair. On the question if there should be a separate law, if we need an RA as opposed to just amending our RPC, we have the position that I think there still should be a separate law on EJKs, precisely because I think the separate law functions not only as a prosecutorial tool, but it also functions as a law that provides for the mechanism of non-repetition of other justice mechanisms, both on the monetary and non-monetary reparations. So I think in this sense, there is a high need, considering I echo our colleagues' concerns on the social impact of extrajudicial killings. We need to address social impact, the social impact if we want to address justice concerns. And this is the other crucial aspect of having a separate law. Because we need to provide for these mechanisms. One of the principles or one of the foundational frameworks that we can borrow also from is a transitional justice framework, which is the full range of processes and mechanisms that we can use to address not just in post-conflict situations, but in situations where regimes are actually what with gross human rights violations, as in the previous one. So I think we can borrow the principles from this framework and incorporate them into the separate law. Again, I emphasize this because we need to broaden the perspective that justice is simply prosecutorial or prosecutorial justice. Voices of communities and families would tell us that justice is also about the truth. Justice is also about providing assistance to them. So I think we should consider this. That's why we have to have a separate law to incorporate and integrate these principles and realities. Thank you so much.
Madam Chair.
Yes, Aya.
Yes, Madam Chair, yun po yung aming kanina na may support initiative na ma-penalize po ang EJK. However, it is our humble submission po na covered na siya under RA 951 as unlawful killing and under RA 9745, the anti-torture law, and RA 10353 on the anti-enforced or involuntary disappearance law. If that results from the conduct of torture, mataas ang penalty. Tapos may command responsibility provision pa doon sa mga batas na yun na liable ang superior officers for one, if they led, assisted, or condoned the offense, or second aspect ng command responsibilities, they condoned and did not investigate the alleged violation by their subordinates. So yun po mamang namin na pwedeng idagdag sa murder, sa crime of murder yung EJK kasi bigyan natin mga qualifying circumstances na treachery, deprivation and the like. Pero paano kung yung biktima, kasi ang EJK will look at the rights of the victim, deprivation of life. So kung ang nag-commit ng killing sa kanya ay non-state armed group, so yung ba ay murder, dahil non-state armed group ang nag-commit, di ba dapat higher penalty? Lalo na kung yung non-state armed group, may mga leaders sila na nag-order na patayin mo yan dahil yan ay suspected informant o former rebel or CAFGU na off duty. So yung mga ganun bagay namang iniisip namin na dapat na penalize din ang mga non-state armed groups for killing civilians. We understand that human rights is the obligation of the state, to protect and ensure the human rights of all citizens and individuals. However, yung liability ng non-state armed groups, yan, babangging impunity kanina, na dapat managot din sila sa mga pagpatay ng mga civilian na hindi naman involved sa armed conflict. Yun po. Tapos also, under AO 35, I believe one of the criteria sa pag-determine whether a killing is an EJK, yun nga, merong deliberate intent to kill, yung pinatay ay advocate or suspected to be an advocate of a human rights group or advocacy group, and ang perpetrator, kung hindi government, ay non-state actor, ma'am. Kaya sana po makita rin po ng pag-aralan din po na dapat bang maisama ang non-state armed groups as perpetrators po of EJK. Thank you po.
Yung non-state actors that will, or perpetrators of these killings, if this is committed by a group, di ba pasok na yun sa anti-terrorism? They could be charged for the anti-terrorism, di ba? Halimbawa, yung sinasabi nga ni Sir kanina na CAFGU and all other groups. Kasi the intention of the proposal to us is really to elevate the killing perpetrated by state agents higher than the so-called murder, if that is possible. As I premised earlier, that if this will not violate the Equal Protection Clause, sa tingin ko, dapat klaro kung sino yung perpetrators ng EJK at sino yung hindi. If it's not a state of, if they are not state agents or persons in authority, then therefore they fall under a different category. But if they are state agents and committed such crime, that is considered to be extrajudicial killing. And that was the intention of this particular proposal. Kaya nga, I premised earlier that if this will not violate the Equal Protection Clause, then better perhaps to really differentiate killing from murder and EJK, if that would not violate any constitutional provision. So that's exactly the question I wish to raise to the resource persons, Madam Chair. But clearly, maganda naman ho yung proposal ninyo. At I think unless my co-chairs here would have different views on the comments made by the resource persons, Madam Chair.
I think, Chair, it is clear that they all agree that there is no violation of the constitutional right, Equal Protection Clause. Before we continue, I'd like to acknowledge the presence of Congressman Romeo Acop, the chairman of the Committee on Transportation. Yes, OSG, you're raising your hand.
Yes, Your Honor. In addition, as to why there should actually be a distinction on the distinction between a public officer and or state agents who act under the authority of the state and ordinary civilians. Public officers and or state agents kasi have access to resources such as firearms and personal data, which are not readily available to regular citizens. Equally important is the fact that public officers and or state agents, in view of their political connections, may abuse their power by leveraging their positions, political connections, and moral ascendancy. Such abuse or misuse of power can lead to undermining and bypassing the legal processes, example, the commission of extrajudicial killing, to suppress dissent, eliminate political opponents, and instill fear within a population. So whether the bill will be passed into a special law or the decision is to incorporate it and amend the revised penal code, then the distinctions, the definitions should still be there. Yeah. And it will not violate the equal protection of law.
PL, yes.
Yes, Your Honors. As regards the inclusion of non-state armed groups, I think there are sufficient laws already in place to deal with the crimes, alleged crimes committed by these groups. For example, if you look at the state of things right now, the state is filing cases of anti-terror law, illegal possession of firearms, and even in violations of IHL. You can look at all court records, and there are various cases pending in different courts in the Philippines. But there is no law that defines and penalizes EJKs being committed solely by state agents, considering the nature and how these killings are being carried out. And if we include non-state armed groups in the definition of EJK, I think we can, we'll be recognizing, considering the nature of the offense of EJK, I think it will be a recognition or giving a belligerent status to these armed, non-state armed groups, considering the nature of EJK as state, committed by state actors, and you lump them with non-state armed groups. We are giving a de facto recognition as to their belligerent status, Your Honors.
Okay, so any other members who would like to say something? Yes, Chair.
Another, sorry, when you say state-sponsored, kasi it's a very broad pag sinabi mong state-sponsored, what does it mean?
Who do you want to answer it, Chair?
Anyone who wants to educate us on this. Kasi state-sponsored killings, they say. Diba? State-sponsored extrajudicial killings. When you say state-sponsored, what does exactly state-sponsored mean?
Yes, sir.
Good morning, Madam Chair. Thank you, sir.
Sorry,
I'm Rene Clamor from Karapatan.
Okay.
When we say state-sponsored, sir, actually, remember in 2007, United Nations Special Rapporteur Philip Alston recommended to the Philippine government that the government first must acknowledge that there is a phenomenon called extrajudicial killings. And mostly, in his report, he actually stated that most of the killings were either perpetrated by state security forces, military, police. And remember, the military, the police, they are not acting alone. There has to be a policy. Each government came up with its own counterinsurgency program. And when the government comes up with a counterinsurgency program, now it becomes a state-sponsored operation. So that's why we reiterate, and of course we welcome this initiative. As you said earlier, sir, the essence of this extrajudicial killing is precisely because we came from various cases wherein not only victims of war on drugs, but also victims emanating from people's organizations like activists, peasants, workers, indigenous peoples. And based on our documentation, each administration, of course, they have counterinsurgency program, and these are state-sponsored, sir. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you, Your Honor. Your Honor, Christina Conti, Counsel for Rise Up for Life, but I am also with the National Union of People's Lawyers, National Capital Region. From the initial question, Your Honor, regarding non-state actors, if we were to apply that, although I understand that the AFP seeks to perhaps include members of the New People's Army, CPP-NPA, if I am of that understanding in this law, if we were, one, applied analogously to the war on drugs, in the war on drugs context, Your Honor, yung pong non-state actor sa ganitong konteksto ay sabihin natin yung mga gang, yung pong mga criminal gangs, kumbaga. So, kung tatawagin po silang armed non-state actors, dito po papasok yung tanong, ano ang kaibahan ng pinatay ng adik o ng criminal gang at yung pinatay ng police? So with the disquisition of the Office of the Solicitor General with my colleague from the NUPL, I would clearly agree that first, there is a responsibility on the part of the police more specifically to investigate cases, although initially they would look the same, to investigate cases that were committed by their own. There should be a higher standard because the police will be investigating themselves. On another layer, Your Honor, it is also because of the massive capabilities and resources of the police to cover up. The possibility of cover up, as we have seen in the war on drugs, of the killings and whitewashing is very real, Your Honor. On the other hand, Your Honor, the killings committed by non-state actors, or sa konteksto nga po ng war on drugs, kung kanyari po criminal gangs, they would have no role in the investigation of these crimes, unless, of course, they have already paid off the police or the investigators and so forth. In which context we could apply all other suppletorily all other laws that would include your responsibility as aiding and abetting these crimes, so accessories and so forth. Kaya po talagang kaiba yung konteksto nitong kumbaga non-state actors. And then on another note, Your Honor, non-state actors in the context of state killings shouldn't be, or state-sponsored killings, as in the second question na po, or in the pending question, are not covered clearly because they're non-state. Yung state-sponsored, Your Honor, in the case of the war on drugs, first, the category of those committed by policemen themselves. So clearly police operations, and from the war on drugs, 7,640 admitted by the PNP. We've also seen the characterization of killings committed by unknown perpetrators or vigilante killings, Your Honors. In some of these cases, I'm not saying, we cannot particularly identify, kasi nga po hindi na-imbestigahan. In some of these cases, the police or even the military might be involved, Your Honor. And this is precisely the extent, or this could be the question, of which cases fall under murder and which cases fall under extrajudicial killings. But as of now, Your Honor, if there is a policy direction ordering to kill, as in the case of the war on drugs, that would qualify as a prima facie state-sponsored killing, Your Honor. Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you. Any other questions?
Madam Chair,
yes.
may I ask the resource persons if they agree with the definition of extrajudicial killing as stated in the bill?
It was already discussed, but we will ask.
No, they all agreed with this.
No, they all have their oppositions, and they all submitted.
No, do they have a recommended definition?
Yes,
of
in their
extrajudicial?
position papers po.
Okay.
If you would like them to reiterate it.
Okay lang, Madam Chair, sa akin. Kasi
we will
dito
give
magsisimula
you a copy
kasi yung problema no, sa mga position nila. The definition of extrajudicial killing.
We asked them to submit it in writing, and the committee secretariat was going to summarize it or put it in a table form para you can see the different recommendations, and then the members, of course, can see which ones they would like to use as the working definition.
Madam Chair, I'll wait for their position papers.
Yes.
Para mapag-aralan din
Actually, Chair, ako konti na lang yung hindi nakasubmit, and they all committed to submit yung, kasi yung iba first time lang na invite. So they will submit it by next week, yung mga bago lang na invite. First time na nag-attend ng hearing natin. Pero yung mga dating nag-attend, nakasubmit na sila ng mga position paper.
Thank
So we
you.
will forward it as soon as matanggap namin lahat, including yung mga first-timers po.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
So, any other resource person would like to say something? Yung PNP, would you like to respond? Lumabas. Anyway, may position paper naman kayong sinabmit, no?
Yes, ma'am.
So, yes.
Submitted na
yes,
po, ma'am.
go ahead. Okay.
Submitted.
Madam Chair.
Someone was raising.
Madam Chair.
Yes.
From the AFP.
Nauna sa Hustisya, nauna mag-raise ng hand. Sandali lang po.
Sige, I yield to the AFP if they can speak, President.
Sige.
Thank you very much.
Short lang kasi may gagamit ng kwarto ng ating room. So, sige.
Just a few points, Madam Chair. Yung binabanggit po namin kanina is non-state armed groups, so involved in armed conflict with the government. Kung mga non-state actors sa mga criminals, mga gangs, that falls under criminal syndicates na iba yung treatment sa kanila.
But iba naman yung pinag-usapan natin. Anyway.
Yes, ma'am. Kaya yung yung sinasabi ni Philip Aston, ma'am, na may mga EJ case, ang sabi ang perpetrators are non-state and state actors. So, hindi lang state actors ang ano. And lastly, ma'am, yung binabanggit na belligerency status na if we isama yun na sa armed groups, it would be tantamount to granting belligerency status sa kanila. Actually, ma'am, ang belligerency status under international legal opinion, hindi na siya accepted. Kaya we're focusing on the specific violations of IHL. So, yun na po, ma'am. Thank you po.
Justicia?
Yes, thank you, Your Honor. Just want to reiterate and clarify further when asked ano yung what is a state-sponsored killings. I'd like to give a few examples, Your Honor, Madam Chair. In the case of my father, Jose Reynaldo Porquilla, a week before he was killed, the Philippine National Police made an announcement over the radio that he is being under surveillance. Another case, Your Honor, the Bloody Sunday, which killed 9 activists in southern Tagalog. Another case, Your Honor, is the Tumandok Massacre. It's a joint operation of the CIDG and the Armed Forces of the Philippines. Another example, Your Honor, is the killing of Jude Thaddeus Fernandez. He was a union labor activist and was killed in Binangonan, Rizal. The perpetrator was identified, but the case has not prospered, Your Honor. Another, Your Honor, and let me emphasize this, reiterate this case, the case of Manny Asuncion. We filed a case under the special panel created by the Department of Justice, AO 35, but the Department of Justice dismissed the case, Your Honor. So these are all examples of state-sponsored killings, but at this point, we have no remedy to seek justice for the victims, Your Honor. Thank you.
Thank you. Jerry,
another question, Madam Chair. Para lang for purposes of us being informed. Halimbawa, kasi pagka sinama nga yung non-state to be the perpetrator of EJK, halimbawa, merong gun for hire. And then a governor orders or pays the gun for hire to kill his political opponent. Ano yun? Is that a EJK? Kaya dapat nga diba? Very clear distinction. Kasi there are really, this is prevalent not just in Luzon, but in Mindanao alone there are several armed groups there. They are gun for hire.
So would you like to answer that?
Just maybe anyone would like to give us an idea kung ano yun.
Madam Chair.
Yes, sir.
For the AP, ma'am. I think kaya po nung ipinasa yung Abusive Order number 35 in 2012, meron pong criteria to determine if a killing is an extrajudicial killing. Kasi nga kung gun for hire na pinatay yung opponent, that would be murder sa atin, di po ba? Pero yung sa AO 35, ang ginawa po nila, yung ginawa yung operational guidelines, pag EJK, it refers to the victim was a member or affiliated with an organization to include political, environmental, agrarian, labor, or similar causes. So, may advocacy aspect, ma'am. Tapos, yung victim is an advocate or suspected or mistaken to be or apparently an advocate of those causes, and he was targeted because of his perceived membership and in method and circumstances of attack reveal a deliberate intent to kill. So yun po yung concept under the AO 35 mechanism, ma'am. Yun po.
Thank you. Chair Ace?
Yeah, I'm okay. Thank you. Thank you.
Yes, Chair. Pangako.
Madam Chair, kaya ko po hinihingi kung ano yung recommendation sana nila ng definition ng extrajudicial killing to differentiate it from the other kinds of killing. Kasi sa definition na binigay ng bill, there are, I think there are 2 definitions. The first of extrajudicial killings, any killing other than that imposed by the state pursuant to the provisions of the Constitution on heinous crimes. The other one is a deliberate and arbitrary killing of any person not authorized by a previous judgment pronounced by a competent court, affording all the judicial guarantees which are recognized as indispensable by civilized people So from this definition, we have certain elements. One of the elements would be, it would be committed by a public officer, person in authority, agent of a person in authority, or any person who is acting under the actual or apparent authority of the state. Yun po yung magiging elements ng provision on definition of terms, Section 3A of our bill. So, mako-confine po dito. Now, if they can come up with a better definition of extrajudicial killings, you would be happy to accommodate and study the matter. Madam Chair.
Yes, Chair Akop. They actually have suggestions, so we will give you copies of their position papers para we can maybe come up with the best definition from all those. Actually, it was actually already also discussed earlier when Chair Ace asked the resource persons about those elements po.
Thank you,
As to the actors, yun yung tinanong kanina ni Chair Ace, yung actors are who are liable.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
So, any other questions from the members? So, reminder lang, yung mga hindi pa nakasubmit, ilan lang naman yung hindi pa nakasubmit, yung mga first time na nag-attend ng ating hearing. Please submit your position papers by next week para makagawa na tayo ng bagong bill or refined bill. Whatever the decision of the committee will be, whether we will have a separate law or if we will just amend the RPC. So we will look at all your position papers para mapag-aralan namin. So is there a motion?
Madam Chair?
Yes, Chair.
May I respectfully move that we suspend the hearing on this issue? So move, Mr. Chair.
So there's a motion to suspend the deliberation of House Bill number 10986. There being no objection, the deliberations of House Bill number 10986 is hereby suspended. Other matters? No other matters? Is there a motion?
So,
the meeting.
Move to adjourn the meeting today, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Chair Ace. The meeting is hereby adjourned. Thank you very much.